from a cinema loving point of view, like it's a pretty special thing to witness.
My dad, he was a quiet man with a camera.
Watch carefully so you remember what you've seen.
And he was the only person who understood me. And now he's gone. I miss him terribly.
So I have to say, firstly, thank you for the first really good cry I've had in a cinema for a long while. It was really cathartic and maybe not for what people may expect, but it was from a real celebration of life and people and what it is to lose people. And I wonder what your thoughts on that might be and if you've had similar reactions from people.
Yeah, so we had LFF last night, and that's kind of the first time that a lot of people have seen the film. And the overwhelming reaction was that of it feeling cathartic and oddly hopeful, and full of love. I think that this film is all about love, really. It's about the love of a father and a daughter, but it's also about the love of nature and of connection with animals, but also is a story of love of a friendship, a female friendship, of Helen and her best friend. And there's so much in it that is, I feel like, hopeful and positive, and it's certainly not just sort of wallowing in sadness, for sure.
Exactly that. Yes, I felt very strangely, because a lot of the comparisons have been like to Ring of Bright Water or some really sort of very emotionally ringing films, but it's just not that at all. I came out feeling, yeah, like you say, surprised. I just felt seen in a way that I don't think grief is seen. And it's so much of that life and death. Oh, paradox.
Yeah,
really.
One of my best friends came to see it, and she said the most beautiful thing about grief, that it's like a fried egg, and that the centre of the grief is always the same, which is the yellow part of the egg. And then the outside of the egg, when it's cooking, it starts off as transparent and it hardens and it gets whiter and it becomes different. And that's kind of what grief is. That the centre of it stays the same, but life continues around it. And I think what the film captures really beautifully, and what Helen's book captures really beautifully, is a lot of the time the absurdity and the humour that comes out of that. Especially in the UK, there's a very sort of kind of almost macabre sort of, and at times, gallows humour. Like sometimes, I mean, in my family, people obviously sometimes say that hospitals are the funniest places, like, because so much of it is that feeling of like you're so present when you're that close to something. It doesn't necessarily have to be death, it could be anything, but something that serious, that sort of seismic, I suppose, that it does bring out the humour in the most absurd and strange things. And I do really think that the film is able to do that. And that's quite reassuring. And like you said, like, it's so close to reality. I think the film is really truthful. It's not trying to present this human experience as anything other than what it is. It's not trying to make it into a film. Which I think is quite often what happens. It makes it into a story about some superhuman struggle, and I think that we just didn't try and do that at all. We just stayed as faithful as humanly possible to Helen's book. Hopefully other people feel the same way that you do.
Yes, I'm positive, and it was just such a, like, because she's not extraordinary. She's not, and we're not led to feel that she's anything other. She's like your anti-hero in a way, but she is wonderful. Of course she is.
Yeah.
She's a universe of extraordinariness in lots of ways, like we all are. And I love that she wore the same clothes every day, but even though that was to be a sort of sign of something else a bit further on, but loads of us wear the same clothes every day, and loads of us have a best pal in the same way that she does. And it's just it's in its ordinariness that we all just go, oh, thank God. In some respects, but of course then we get onto the extraordinary bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think that that's what I'm most interested in a way, is that the people that I think are most interesting in my life are the people that you would presume would be people who make movies and and do really jazzy things with their lives, and that's not the case at all in my experience. And it's not as if I believe that it's ordinary, because I feel like sometimes that comes across as it being sort of humdrum or like
Yes, wrong words. Sorry, that's my
yeah,
bad.
no, not at all, not at all. But I think it's that thing of it's about we're all extraordinary in our own way, and I think the thing that's extraordinary about Helen's story is how unique it is. This person went through something so catastrophic to them, and what we as an outside audience want from her in that story is not what she gives us. She doesn't give us like a neat little package of like, she cries, she reads a poem, she grieves, and therefore that's the end of it. I think the story of Helen's grief for her father dying is so much more human by virtue of the fact that even she says she sort of does it in the wrong way, I suppose, in inverted commas. She runs away from it as opposed to towards it. But by running away from it, she finds like solace and comfort in a bird of prey.
In a goshawk, which is just so, and it feels so real because it's her story, it's her true story. You see where the seeds are sown and why she would do that. But yes, it is still fantastically unexpected. What a great character. How delicious for you to get this script and go, yes, please.
I do my research and I teach a bunch of undergrads at Cambridge. Hi, everyone. But I'm not dealing with things very well at the moment. Professor? Sorry, yeah, great. I need something different. I want a goshawk.
Goshawks, the wildest and maddest of raptors.
I was working with Dee Dee Gardner, the producer of this, on Women Talking. And we went for a walk around Telluride because we were there with Women Talking, and she told me about the book and about Philippa, and I'd worked with Philippa Lothorpe, the director, before, so anything that Dee Dee likes, I automatically I'm like, well, it must be amazing then, because I think she's got absolutely impeccable taste. And so I went in reading the book with that in mind, which is quite a high bar. But I was so surprised by the book. I found it incredibly profound. I find Helen's writing to be really eloquent, and her intellect comes across in how she writes, but not at all like unapproachable in any way. I felt like it's so relevant. I didn't feel like there was a distance between it at all. I felt like, and if anything, her kind of eloquence like helped me to get closer to it in a way. And like most people basically who made this film, had a very, very strange connection to Helen's book in some way, in some serendipitous, weird, the universe is speaking to us kind of way. All of us like completely unique and personal. And that was the same with me. And so that it didn't feel like there wasn't really a choice about whether I played the part or not. And I think that was a very, very easy decision. But then I think after that, it's reading Helen's book and trying to encapsulate that person, because at that period of time, and now they're a very, very unique person, and I'm not around, I don't want to say I'm not around lots of people like them, because actors are very intelligent, okay? But I'm not around academics a lot in life. That's not something that I didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge, and that environment and that brain is something that I was quite terrified to try and portray. But Helen as a person is funny, has these incredible interests in, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like just a full, huge person, just of like just an extraordinary individual. So that
Absolutely.
was the most daunting thing to me, was to try and encapsulate that, but at the the lowest moment of their life, really. And for my need to want to be like Helen, not to overwhelm the story. Yeah, and then the birds were sort of a secondary panic attack later on, basically.
Well, I mean, just because you played it beautifully in terms of like you have this extraordinary exposure to this bird of prey, a predator that could claw your face off at any moment, and yet you're still displaying a descent into a breakdown. You know, so, and it was a beautiful balance. And in the thrilling part of watching that, in a way, wasn't so much as when is it the bird that's going to get you, or is it the grief that's going to get you, which is coming first? So it was very edge of the seat for a myriad of reasons in that respect. But please, can you tell us about training with the hawk and acting alongside the hawk?
Yeah, I mean, so technically we had 5 hawks, because of the way films work, and the time that the movie is set across. There were 4 main hawks for me, because one of them, number 5, was a flying bird mainly. But I got close, like I feel personally close. They might disagree, to 2 of them, which was one of the Mabels and a bird called Jess. And it was the most surprising thing I've ever done, possibly in my career. I never thought I'd be doing anything like that. It's not something you can have a skill set of. Falconers and Ostringers are an entire community of people that I wasn't part of, and very few people are part of. And it's an extraordinary community of people. And the skill and the knowledge and the love of these incredible creatures it was a privilege to witness. And yeah, a world I'd never been in. So I was totally, I could go into it with nothing but just, oh, okay. Like there were no preconceptions. I had no idea if I'd be any good at it, what even was going to be good at it. I didn't even know how to do it. And I realised that kind of a couple of days into spending time with the birds, that they were very vulnerable, really. They were living in sort of a human world, and they are wild creatures, and that's, they want to be living in woodland, and obviously in the UK with the way that nature has evolved, there aren't that many wild goshawks anymore. So we need people like Lloyd and Rose, who are the people who kind of reared the birds for the film, to protect this species, really, and love them, and that's what they do. And so their vulnerability was from the fact that they're so overexposed and so overstimulated all the time, by virtue of how their brains work, that I found just real sympathy for them. And that was my sort of way in, really, that I needed to kind of look after them and protect them. And as soon as I had that, I felt, I mean, I'm projecting this onto those birds, but that I was like, oh, okay, get it. This is okay. Like, I'm not here there's no dominating that's going to happen here. There's no like me taking control. These wild animals are totally in control, and I just have to facilitate them living their lives and not get in the way. And if I'm not in the way, then they'll be like, oh, I can tolerate you, you're fine. So that's what I tried to do. And I was just patient, really, and just, they were always the most important people in the room. And it was an honour to be anywhere near them, really. And therefore, I didn't really have to do any acting. It didn't feel like, because they were so immediate that I just sort of had to be as well.
When I call her, then you let her go. Good girl. I'm going to call you Mabel.
Helen, human beings can't live this well. Are you feeling that you're a failure?
Well, that's just a matter of fact.
Don't be so hard on yourself. It's just working out your place in the world.
And I just must touch on your relationship with Brendan Gleeson. Again, the sort of thing that you don't dramatically normally see, like father and daughter have great relationship, but it's the catastrophic severance of that relationship that is often not explored. And I just thought you and he looked just wonderful on screen together. Tell me about working with him, just to finish up.
I mean, it was definitely like a real... he would... If I had a list, which I don't, if I have a mental list, maybe, of like actors that I would dream to work with, he's on it. And he didn't like disappoint even for a second. He was exactly as you sort of imagine him to be, really inspiring, warm, like so funny. curious, so generous. I immediately felt very like close to him in a way, and he speaks so beautifully about being a father that I found that really, really incredible to be around. And I think he's incredibly important to the film because you miss him. He's a very missable person, is Brendan Gleeson. Like, he creates a big, he's just a big man, and I mean that in kind of like a soulful way. He's got a huge heart, and so when he's not there, you're like, oh. And so it was very, very easy to kind of feel the way that Helen spoke and speaks about their father. I found it very easy to feel those feelings towards Brendan, and I think most people do. It's why he's so amazing to watch on screen and in theatre. But yeah, he's just a really, really wonderful man. I would love to be able to do something with him again where I get to spend more time with him.
That would be wonderful. And just the last final question is, why do we have to go and see this in the cinema? I know why I did it, because that collective relief and joy. But what would you say is the reason to go and see it in a cinema?
Yeah, I think there's like a couple of reasons. I think for me, the main one is the emotional, and the reason why the film's been made really is to, someone once said to me that everything is better in community. And I think grief is such an isolating, thing that we all have to go through. And I think it's made more isolating by the way we deal with it, especially in our culture. I just think that the more that we can kind of do this with other people, because everybody has to go through it, the better, really. And I think this film shows a person who struggles to do that, and a friend who it keeps being there on the doorstep, waiting to share it with them and to help them through it. But another aspect of it, I think, is all the shots of the hawks hunting, and just the hawks. It's very rare to see that on screen and to see that on a big screen and shot in the way that it was shot. And so from a cinema-loving point of view, like, it's a pretty special thing to witness. I find that all those incredible moments where you're seeing these wild animals captured in that moment, it's pretty special.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on the Picture House podcast today, Claire Foy. Good luck with H is for Hawk. Thank you.
Thank you.
I always thought Dad taught me to be detached. But being with Mabel, it's an honest encounter with life. And now I see how engaged with life Dad was. Life's real, serious, and beautiful.
Remember, smile.